welcome to another episode of Lannert County Confidential. I'm your host, Mike Lynch Staunton. This is episode number 33. This is just sort of a fill-in. I had an interview set up, but he had to cancel at the last moment. Something came up on his end, so I'm sort of having to make it all up as I go along. So, but I have been given a few questions, or received a few questions over the last couple of months that I should have been answering. So I put a few of them together, and I'm just going to give you. We'll wing it and see how it goes this week. I haven't got my gambler order yet, so I can't talk about the burner worm or the swimming jigs, but next week, hopefully. Of course, we're being broadcast on Reno Viola Outdoors Radio Network, WRVO. And today's show is sponsored by Rusty's Tackle Shack, 1558 Richmond Road, Franktown, Ontario. The largest selection of gambler lures. A jig headquarters. If you throw a jig, pitch a jig, all the components there to make a jig are there. Skirts and rattles and all sorts of stuff. Rod and reel repairs and a custom rod builder. So if you need any of your rods repaired, nip tips, if you need your reels super tuned so they cast further, give Rusty's a call, 613-207-0286. So today, I've got a few questions I will answer, but to start it off, this weekend, following weekend, on Sunday, we had our Ottawa Valley South Bass Masters first tournament. It's what they call a multi-species tournament. It's pretty cool, because you're not just, obviously bass isn't open, so it's multi-species. Obviously, the name suggests you're going to go out and catch more than one fish in each. Well, the premise is this: you catch one fish in each of the different categories. You measure them, and then the longest distance or the greatest length wins. So. And it was won by Charles Sim and Eve Bassnet. And Eve, it was his first tournament, so win. So congratulations, Charles. Sure, you've put it in the category, put it in your another one of your wins category. So congratulations to both of them. And Don Jones and Adam Lynch came in second. So I would have figured Don would have won the thing, but they were down to their last. Actually, Charles won Eve won it for Charles in the last few minutes. They caught a pike, half decent 20-inch pike. So, and that sort of vaulted them to the win. So, and the nice thing about it is we had a barbecue afterwards, so you get to sit down and do the BS with all your buddies, and this is my first year in the club, so I'm getting to know a lot of these guys, and it's just nice to be able to sit down in a non-competitive atmosphere and get to know some of these guys, because I know during tournaments you only get so long to talk to somebody, so I enjoyed myself, and I'm sure all of the other guys were having a good time as well too. So Bassmasters is for guys that want to get into doing tournaments or just want to get better at fishing is a good premise. It's if you've got a local club, join as a non-boater first. Do a couple of years as a non-boater. A lot of clubs out there are looking for non-boaters. So. And it gives you the opportunity to fish with some really good anglers. I know Charles and Don, they're very good anglers in my estimation. So, if I get to spend, I know I've spent a day in the boat with Don and I've seen how he fishes, and I learned a lot from him. And I know I would from Charles as well, too. So, just the opportunity to be able to fish with one of these guys is something that... if you're looking to get into tournaments, or like I say, if you're just looking to increase your angling knowledge, especially for bass, then this is a good group to join. But if you look at these multi-species tournament in the respect of put it this way, if I had fished with Charles on that body of water, then I would have had a better respect for where the walleye sit in that body of water. Because obviously with the places that I picked, they weren't holding walleye. So, and the same thing with pike. The areas that I thought would hold pike at that time of the year, we didn't see any pike. Now, I picked some good areas that hold muskie, so maybe this weekend I'll be out there throwing a spinnerbait looking for muskies on the Rideau. So, because muskies opening up this weekend. So it was. That being said, that's what Bassmasters is about. So, on to the questions, and most of the questions having to deal with outboard issues or something like that. There was a couple of ones. There was a guy saying like, "Hey, how do I make my bait caster?" Well, actually, this is a good one. I'm going to give this to guys that are having problems with birds' nests in their bait casters, or they just, because I got 3 or 4 questions on how do I make sure that my bait caster doesn't go into birds' nests. Okay, and in guiding over the years, what I've done on a few. When I put somebody in the boat, I ask them a couple of questions, like what do you feel comfortable with? Or even I tell them beforehand, like if you have a favorite rod and reel, bring it and I'll just tie something on the end for you. But some guys, they say, well, I want to learn how to pitch and flip. So that's a totally different scenario. So I don't want to waste their day and I don't want to waste my evenings respooling reels constantly to get rid of birds' nests. So what I'll do is I will take that reel and I'll fire out a bunch of line, maybe 50 feet or something like that. And then it's going to be more than enough that I know that they're going to, then they're going to, it's, if they were casting, then I would cast as far as I could and then strip off about 20 more feet. If we're pitching, I would pitch and then pull off about 30 more feet type thing. So, and while all I do at that point is I take duct tape and I wrap it around the spool, or I use duct tape now, but back then I was using Scotch tape or just an ordinary. I've masking tapes. I had some problems with masking tape. What's happening is you never ever get to the point where you're going to overspool, and that helps a lot. And then once you get more confident using your thumb as your brake, and that's how I teach the guys is they use the thumb as the brake, then you eventually can get rid of that, and you don't have to worry about it. But I've got a couple of reels that you can only cast so far with them because obviously you get to the tape, so it will come off, and it's no big deal. So. But anyways, his question about how do I get my baitcaster to cast further? Well, in taking a lot of the reels apart and cleaning them up, I found that they put a lot of grease in there in places that they don't necessarily need, but in production for reasons and to keep these reels alive for a long time, that's what they do. So what I do is I clean out a lot of the grease where it shouldn't be, and I put grease where it should be and then lightly oil it. And then I tell the guys that, like on a yearly basis, you should be oiling your reels. And every once in a while, you should, a couple of years or whatever. If they're heavily used, then you should have them cleaned every year. So it's their choice. But what I find is the guys that want to take care of their stuff, take care of their stuff. So, what I can say is you can go out and buy the fancy bearings and stuff and the fancy drag washers, and they do work. I've done a couple of reels up with those, and they do work. So, better bearings are better bearings. It works in race engines. It works in reels. So, it makes no sense not to do something like that. So, you can do that, and that will definitely make it cast a bit further as well. So a properly set up rod will make it cast further as well too. So there's a few things that'll do it. Anyways, this guy's got he says he's got like an 88. that this year he had a black residue coming out, and he's wondering if it's his gear case is leaking. This is one of these questions that I get from guys that own carbureted two-strokes, that do their own winterization, and it's just a wearing issue. There's no gear oil. Gear oil is going to be clear, or if it's got water in it, if it's going to leak out, it's probably got water in it, so it's going to be a milky color. But in doing your own winterization, you should be pulling the prop off and making sure there's no fishing line or anything wrapped around the prop shaft. So, and in doing so, you're going to see that if it was leaking, you would see the prop shaft seal leaking. So that's not the case. If the gear case is leaking underneath the water pump seal, when you take the drain screw for the gear case out, you're going to see it's milky at that point. What you've got is you've probably got a bad thermostat. So if you're doing a lot of trolling, or what's happening is the engine's not getting warm enough at an idle, and you're getting a lot more deposits at lower RPM. You're getting more oil deposits at lower RPM. So what happens over the wintertime from the winterization is that oil, that storage fogging oil, goes through and it actually cleans some of the carbon off the inside of the exhaust housing, and that leaks down over the wintertime. And this year you've realized that it's starting to leak out. They've changed the formulation on the storage seal, so that's what'll happen. Or if you've done an extra amount of storage seal, that's what'll happen again as well too. But typically, it's not a gear case leaking issue. It's normal if you do a lot of trolling, because of the engines are designed on a variable pump, and usually that variable pump overpumps at an idle, so you get a bit over oiling. And if you have an engine that's not warming up, then you're going to get a bit more deposits. You're going to get a bit more excess oil depositing on the exhaust housing, and that over time will just leak, or gravity will pull it down, and from it sitting horizontal or from sitting vertical over the wintertime, that's what you're going to see is that residue leaking out. So what I would suggest is have your thermostat checked. See if the motor's getting warm. It should be running about 145 degrees at an idle. So if it's not doing that, thermostat's not working properly, and I get that fixed. At the same time, I'd probably do your water pump too. But okay, this guy wants to sell his boat. I get this a lot. What do I do? How do I sell my boat? Well, how do you do anything? If I was going to buy something, I'd want to make sure that I had all the service records that you could. Have a service department check it out. Do a compression check. Drop your gear oil. Guys were buying their boats up out of the States, and I get to the point where I will pull the prop shaft housing out of the gear case just to make sure that the pinions are in good shape, because some of these boats, some of these gear cases were losing pinion. We're losing gear cases within a year of being up here, and then the guys knew down there that there was an issue. But if you can have an inspection done, and it would be good for selling it. Like I have a guy right now who's looking to sell his boat. So what he asked me to do is do a compression check, and I'm going to do that. We're going to list it, and I think I've did it in the past as well. So. And he's serviced it over the years, so he has a record of it year after year after year. When you're going to sell something, that's very good to sell it. I mean, it keeps the price up. So it wasn't ridden hard and put away wet. So it's to a benefit for you to do it, and you're going to get a better price for it. So, and then list it on all the places that they listed. If it's a fishing boat, Fish Hawk, and if it's Kijiji, Ottawa, and places like that. But if it's a fishing boat, just find all the fishing forums that are close by, and only do a water test if the guy's got a cash or some kind of deposit, not a check. Don't take a check for any of this stuff. And if he's got a cash deposit that he's willing to bring with him, then do a water test. But it only takes a couple of times for you to go to water, and the guy, you run around for 15, 20 minutes, and then he comes back. He says, "Well, I'll call you," and then you don't hear from them. So if they're serious, they'll bring money. So anyways. Number 3, this guy's from Arm Prior. Steve. He bought a trolling motor last summer. It's a 24-volt motor guide. It worked fine until the end of the season, then it started acting strange. Well, I don't know what strange is, but sorry, Steve. I'm not trying to make fun of your question, but he's got two batteries. One's a starting battery, and one's a deep cycle. When he puts the battery charger on it, it says fully charged right away. So he says he's wondering whether he's using the battery, or whether it's a trolling motor, or whether it's the batteries. And it doesn't say what kind of batteries. Well, it says it's a trolling motor and a starting battery. Then no, there's a problem right there. That's 85 to 90% of the issues I find with trolling motors are the batteries or the connections. I've even got it down to you want to check your battery. It should take a certain amount of time. If you use your battery for an hour, say during the day, it should take about an hour for it to charge back up. If you throw the charger on it and it comes back up in a half an hour, 20 minutes, 45 minutes, stuff like that, your batteries are starting to weaken. They're charged, yes, but they're only, say, 60% of their full capacity. And that's what happens. Deep cycle batteries have a charge cycle. They have so many charged. That means like they can be charged so many times, and then they're basically they have no capacity left to make electricity. Ions, anyways. So a trolling motor is designed to take a low amount of current over a long period of time. So a deep cycle is what's designed to run a trolling motor. What's happened if you hook a trolling motor battery and a starting battery together, they're going to equalize over a period of time, and you're not going to get as much out of that combination as you would if you had two deep cycles there. Your deep cycle batteries should be over capacity. So, I mean, there's 24s, there's 27s, there's 29s, there's 31s. And just to get into batteries here, Interstate's 29s are pretty much everybody else's 31s. So that's why if the guy's doing tournaments, I'll suggest the 29s. If he's a weekend fisherman and he's a passionate weekend fisherman, then we'll do the 27s. If he uses it occasionally on a weekend, then the 24s is fine. But you need the overcapacity, because once you drop those batteries down below 30 to 20%, then you're decreasing their life as well too. So knowing how to take care of deep cycle batteries will make the batteries last a long time. I can typically get 2 good years out of my 29s, and if I'm not pushing it too bad, a third year out of it. But I'll typically sell them after 2 years. With light to moderate use, I can get 4 to 5 years out of them. So you charge them right away as soon as you come back. You charge them with a deep cycle battery charger. And once a year you check their electrolyte level, and you use distilled water, and make sure your connections are clean every year, and you should have little to no problems with your trolling motors and stuff. It's just the batteries, and it's not the trolling motor. So, okay. This guy's Brad from Calidar, all the way down in Calidar. Cool. How do I know if my steering? Well, he suspects he's got a steering cable issue. He says it's hard one way and it's easy the other, and that's a general indication that your steering cable's going. Another indication is as the season gets on. I mean, as we go into fall and it gets colder, is it harder and harder and harder? Typically, what they'll do is they'll seize up over the winter time, and you'll get in the springtime, and it'll be tough one way, and then as the season gets on in the fall time, it'll be tougher, and then over the winter time, it sits for 4 to 6 months, and then you go to the springtime, and it's totally seized at that point. So they'll last 10 years. 15, depending on how they're rigged and stuff. But, and at this point, you can make a decision whether you want to go hydraulic or not, because you end a lot of issues. If this is a bass boat and it has a twin cable, This boat, I would suggest go to hydraulic. It's a lot more secure. It's a lot more stable. It's a lot more safe. So that might be, and the hydraulic units are coming down in price. So you're better off with it in the long run. Because you don't have to replace cables in another 10 years or whatever. So, and the hydraulic units are really nice. It makes a big difference. So, okay, this is Joe. On a constant basis. On a four-stroke, I will change the spark plugs every 3 years, and along with the water pump impeller, because it's by that point there's enough deposits on them. And they say, well, four-stroke's pretty clean. Yes, but there is deposits, and four-strokes, surprisingly enough, do burn oil. That's why there's a dipstick on your engine. It's not just to check the condition of the oil, the color of the oil, and stuff like that. It's also to make sure that that oil is there's still oil in the engine, because I've never seen an engine that didn't burn oil. So that's why the dipstick's there. But spark plugs and impeller, I would change them every 3 years, and that sort of brings me to another point here, where when we're talking about winterization, well, we're talking about changing stuff, but typically, four-stroke on winterization, you'll let it go. You'll let it go. It's not a thing where you're going to change the plugs for the guy. And most people say, "Well, I'll bring it in for a spring tune-up." Some guys just rely on the winterization. You can't rely on a winterization to do all of your maintenance, is what I'm trying to get across. So I would say every 3 years on a four-stroke, I would take it in and have them go over it from cover to skeg, and make sure that everything is tight. And that's leading to my next one. I see a lot of high-performance boats, bass boats specifically, come into my shop, and they've got steering and setback issues, meaning there's loose motor mounts, or the bolts holding the setback are loose. So something that should be addressed by your mechanic every year on one of these things, or every 50 hours, is to make sure that the bolts holding the setback and holding the motor and the steering has been tightened as well too. So, and that's about it for the questions that we're going to do with this week. So, but a bit more somber note. Last weekend, there was an incident on the Ottawa River where a couple of guys were swept over into the rapids. One had a life jacket, one didn't, and that was the tragedy. Is the one that didn't. So the water levels are still up. Rivers are still going pretty fast. Life jacket is exactly what it is. It's a life jacket. So it's too bad we have to hear of this every year. But I guess it's because we have to hear of this every year that it reminds us to wear our life jackets. And if you have anybody else in your boat, to make sure that they wear theirs as well too, because it's where they went over in the rapids. I've lived at Britannia for 7 years, and I spent a lot of times in front of those rapids, and I know how fast the water is, and I know how quickly you can get swept over. And they were in a dinghy or a little inflatable boat, and they really basically had no chance if they were in front of the rapids or even close to the side. So think about what we're doing out in the water. Watch the water levels, because it's still up big time. I went through Smith Falls the other day. The water coming out of Big Rito is still up. It's still wide open. Going down the Rito, there's still a lot of current. I know the Ottawa, there's still all the lakes are still up. So it's not a time that you can sort of relax, and it's not the summertime. And it's not something that we want to keep hearing of. So my condolences to the family. I don't never ever want to have to talk about this, but having lived in that area, it's happened, and it happened a few times. So, anyways, don't want to end on a somber note, but the fishing's been great. Get the hell out there, enjoy the rest of the springtime, because I'm out of here next week. Bye.